The checklist and the map are how many dimensions? They're 2. In order for me to land the fucking airplane, they don't care about the curvature of the earth. They care about landing the fucking airplane.
The nuke is every single, whether military or regular flight manual, talks about a non-rotating Earth, a flat Earth. Your flight manual says the Earth is flat. And to be an airplane pilot, your own fucking Bible says, the flight manual says, you must land the plane like it's not rotating. Do not account for curvature.
Cool.
Literally, to become who you are in Air Force, you have to sign on the dotted line of flat Earth, nigga.
Okay, here we go. I might have to blank up.
Ready? It's over. What are you gonna say?
So here we go. Now, let's go back to the original, the original example I gave. Do you guys remember where I say we put a flat Earth on top of a sphere?
Oh, so it's a hypothetical. It's a hypothetical.
We're going to start with a hypothetical, and then we're going to extrapolate back to reality.
So when it says on a flight manual, just land the fucking plane, bro.
Yeah.
Don't think of motion or curvature. Just land the plane.
Correct.
That's a hypothetical.
One more time.
One
more time. So we're going to use 2 examples. Number 1 is if we have a sphere that is big enough, we would not be able to distinguish it from a flat plane. Number 1, and number 2.
So you assume it's flat. Landing it every time.
We'll get to that. Number two, what happens is when we look at the 8 inches per mile squared, it breaks down at 60 miles. That's where it breaks down. When you do an emergency landing, is it usually more or less than 60 miles? Do I do emergency landings in New York? Do I do them in France? No, I do them very close. In fact, that flight that came out of Teterboro, do you remember where they had the double bird strike? They landed within visual range.
You're landing on a gyroscope. You have a gyroscope, and you don't believe in flat Earth. You don't even know what a gyroscope is.
Yeah, of course I know what a gyroscope is.
Okay.
You need 2 of them in the airplane. Ready? Here we go.
Bro, you literally have, what's the one that the land and the sky? You literally.
It's an altimeter. No, that's not an altimeter. That's I forgot.
I land the thing in like New Jersey or the river.
Yeah, so he uses visual flight reference. Okay, so now here's the point. If I was going to try to make a paper plane to hit John right here, I don't need to take, let's just say round Earth is real. I don't need to take curvature of the Earth or Coriolis effect into account. I would just say, oh, he's right there, and I would throw it. If John were further back, I would pitch it up and I would put a little bit more calculation. If John were moving from right to left, I might lead him. The calculations get more complicated as there are more variables. During an emergency landing situation, what you do, because I have several emergency landing situations in a Cessna and a Piper Warrior, Cessna 172 and a Piper.
Man, we were unlucky several times.
There we go.
Kidding. Not God bless him and his family.
No. They're simulated.
They're simulated. You haven't been in a like.
So the co-pilot. No,
I was making a joke of you dying.
What the co-pilot? That's hilarious. Yeah. The co-pilot just pulls the.
Is that Mohammed Atta?
What do you mean?
Is that the co-pilot?
That's good. That's a good one.
Yeah. That's a one-way flight to New York.
Yeah, it's a one-way flight.
That's the only flight where the Earth's shape don't matter.
So anyway, going back to oh, that's hilarious. Going back to what we were saying before. In these short distances, just like I said, where I'm throwing a plane across,
You're saying it gets more complicated.
Yeah, it gets more complicated. So let's go back to your thing. Specifically, what it says in a flight manual is it says you're to assume that the aircraft is rigid, that the mass stays the same, and that it stays symmetrical.
Now say it simply to roll over his mind.
Here we go.
How many planes have you landed in your life?
How many landings do I have? Probably 200. How many planes have I landed? 2. Well, they're different versions of the Cessna 172 and a Piper Warrior.
But Roloff, listen to what he's explaining to you. He's explaining
how I navigated for C-135.
He's saying to you, to be an airplane pilot.
No, that's not what I'm saying to you. That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm not tripping you up. He's saying that he has to assume. It says on his scripture, it literally says to be an airplane pilot, he has to assume the Earth is non-rotating to land it. He has to.
There we go. Ready. Here we go.
The roll-blooded being Zerka to land it.
We just get him to be quiet for a little bit. Going back to the same thing. Ready?
CGI plane getting a building in the background. So doesn't it look like 9/11? So look in the background. That's September 11th. Look on the screen.
Going back to this
CGI plane.
When I'm throwing the paper plane, I don't need that much information in the model. When he starts talking about what he's talking about, first off, that the mass stays the same. What happens when you burn fuel in an aircraft? The mass decreases. What happens when you burn fuel from one tank or the other? Is it still symmetrical? No. They remove variables from the model because when you're flying an airplane, you don't need those models.
So why do they add our variables? Why does it say the word?
Hold on. Ready? Here we go. When you fly over long distances and you map those out like I did, you use great circle routes. They actually do work. But If you were to take a globe and take the Great Circle route and then picture, like gain in latitude, you would see the Great Circle route and it would look like a straight line. When you look at a Great Circle route from directly over it, it looks like a straight line. But that is for long distances. For short distances, as we said before, inside of 60 miles, and as we proved before, and I'll put this in the chat, I'll put this in the description, after 60 miles, the 8 inches per mile squared breaks down. When we do that, we don't need that excess information. I'll give you another example, because I know you don't believe in the strong nuclear force. If we were to look at the formula for physics, for nuclear fusion, do you account gravity in there? What do you think?
No,
For nuclear fusion,
no, you don't, Rolo.
you don't account gravity because it's so negligible on atomic particles that we don't account for gravity, even though gravity has a place to do with it. Does that make sense? When we land and take off a plane, or when we drive a car, or when we're driving short distances, we don't have to allow for the curvature of the Earth. And I'll make it even.
And even the balloon. We don't account for gravity on a weather balloon.
I'll make it even more simple. When I'm flying the Cessna 172, especially when you go through flight school, you're not allowed to have a computer. We teach our pilots the most basic way to do it, using VFR, using instruments. You're not allowed to use a GPS when you first start flying. On my leg goes, I'm not allowed to carry what's it called, an iPad during flight training initially. Maybe they do it now, but when I did, they didn't. On my left leg is going to be a map that is folded up, and it's got 2 plastic things over the top and the bottom, and this is the map of my entire route, and the emergency airfields are annotated before I take off. But that's my job to do so. That's an FAA regulation. On my right leg is going to be my checklist. Okay, it's also going to be strapped to my leg. The checklist and the map are how many dimensions? 2. They're 2. In order for me to land the fucking airplane, they don't care about the curvature of the Earth. They care about landing the fucking airplane.
What about the motion?
That's the reason.
What about the motion? What about the motion? Why do you say it's not in motion?
Great question.
You have another code?
Because the atmosphere that I'm traveling in has the same angular velocity, angular momentum as the planet that it's rotating around.
So just say you don't need the Earth to be a globe to be a pilot.
No.
Say it right now.
No. What
You literally don't even have to let it
to fly for beginning.
It's so ridiculous.
For beginning flight, you don't need to count curvature in. But when you go long distances, you absolutely do.
Which airplane pilots do account for curvature?
If you go long distances, all of them do. For long distances. For long distances.
Pilot, the guy the space flight for Virgin Atlantic
Yeah.
or Virgin Galactic.
Yeah. The point is, that's the reason why. Now, there's another thing that you have to understand, and that is back when we first started writing these manuals, like let's just say before 1988, we did not have the computational ability in there to put a 3-dimensional model. Which the reason why we do now, and that's the reason why.
The reason why we use azimuthal, equidistant, flat Earth, maps in every emergency airline. What's that called? The AI that lands it.
One more time.
What's that? Autopilot. Every autopilot is on our fucking map. Your Mercator is garbage.
Let me explain.
No one on Earth.
Here we go. Blah 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 blah. Here we go. One more time. When you have an emergency situation, let's say I were to lose 2 engines in a 2-engine aircraft, or let's say I were to lose the main engine in like a Cessna. What happens to the electrical system? I lose it. So in order for me to land, I need to use what's called visual flight references. Does that make sense? I might. So when I train for an emergency landing, would I train using a GPS? Would I train using the computer? Or would I train just using a flat map that's on my leg?
Okay, that's fine.
That's the reason
fine, but
that is the reason why.
Answer why that flat Earth map that you guys use has an ice wall.
Because you're spreading out the fucking, it's an illusion. You're spreading out the fucking Antarctica. You're taking Antarctica, you're spreading it around.
I agree.
But
I agree. You change up the shape of the whole continent.
No, here's my question.
I agree. And that's the point. Why does
your flat Earth map have South America and Africa squished like this? Why does it have a squish?
Well, why does your Mercator have Africa small? Why does your Mercator have Africa small?
Why does it have it squished?
Why is Africa so small in the Mercator? It's a racist map.
Mercator? What are you talking about, Mercator?
The Mercator depicts Africa much smaller than it actually is.
So maps are racist?
Well, actually, look at the time of when the Mercator map was invented. That's not something to laugh at. You guys are embarrassing yourselves. And number 2, 99% of all maps are inaccurate. He won't admit that.
No, I agree with you.
You agree?
No, but the point is the model, this actually makes my point. The model that is described.
Even mine is inaccurate.
Stop, guys, listen.
But mine is way more than his.
The model.
Way better.
All model, no, I'm sorry. A flat, so you say, this is not a flat Earth map. This is the UN map.
That's what autopilot uses.
Yeah,
okay. So funny.
Going back to what I was saying before, what was I talking about? I got kicked for the first time. I lost my thought.
Yeah, you got nuked.
So when you take the flat Earth map and you look at it, it even squishes the edges like it does there, which would indicate you're looking down on a globe. It was
come on, that was a deflated globe. A deflated globe.
Yeah, but you're the one who's saying it's a deflated globe. Oh yeah, I remember my point.
That's the point. And he won't admit.
There we go.
Wait, you know, Mike Sartain,
You said that
you
your
know
map-
so much of what
you
you're
said
talking
that
about,
your
but you
map-
won't admit what you just said about Antarctica.
your map-
You know what he said about Antarctica? He said, yeah, it's stretch out.
You're
But
saying
he
the
won't admit how much larger that autopilot fucking map is with Antarctica.
wait,
You want to
wait,
admit
wait, wait,
how
wait,
much,
wait,
how much larger is Antarctica than the autopilot? So how much bigger is Antarctica than the autopilot?
No, we don't fly to Antarctica. That's the reason why. We don't fly.
Oh
we
my
don't,
God!
We don't.
If
get pilot
Antarctica,
training.
excuse me,
Pilot training, we don't fly to
Antarctica, Mike, if Antarctica is distorted, why are you assuming nothing else was?
No, all of it's
Get the
distorted.
fu-
But all of it's
That's the
distorted.
point. You distort the maps to make it real, so you can land the fucking plane.
But we don't distort the Earth because we need immediate information for VFR. Well, here's the problem.
But you made Antarctica 10 times bigger.
No, it's not 10 times as big.
Well, how much? Is it 8? Is it 7?
The coastline is 75,000.
That's the point.
No,
For an
the point is-
emergency landing, you got to distort.
We don't emergency. Ready?
He lives
Go
in a
go name all the times we emergency landed.
This is the best stuff ever done.
No, it's a disaster.
You
for
just said it distorts 8
given up.
times. How many times? Is it 7 or 8?
No, one more time.
How many times does
Here we go.
autopilot map?
The circle around Antarctica is about
Yeah, it's called the Antarctic Circle,
on
actually.
Antarctica, it's about 24,000 miles.
Yeah, it was called the Antarctic Circle.
Beautiful.
Called it in 1900.
It's 24,000, and you can go around it, but it's impossible to go around on a flat Earth map because on flat Earth maps you take 25,000, you times that
That's not the
3.14,
question.
and it's 75,000 miles.
The question's not about going around.
It
it's
is.
going around. The question, I want to know why you think an airplane autopilot can distort a continent 6-7 times larger, meaning all of them are distorted, and you're saying that's safe land. Are you kidding me?
And you said that your map is not perfect, right?
I said it's 90% better than yours to land
Here
a
we go.
plane during
Here
an
we go.
emergency.
Here we go. So now, here's the thing. Let's go back to the original point, which was the flight manual. In the flight manual, it describes a model. In this model, the mass of the airplane does not change. In this model, that we assume symmetry and we assume rigidity.
We're not talking about plane, we're talking about continent. We're talking about a continent.
I'm pointing out the original point. The point is
What a cope,
the point is to create a usable model. And in this case, a usable model, because I don't have electricity and I have to look at a flat map on my leg, I'm going to use
But the question
easiest thing
is, the question is not about it being flat. It's about distorting continents 8 times larger. That means every continent. You know how dangerous this sounds to fly?
Yeah, I understand your point. Okay, we don't use a map of the entire planet when we fly locally like that. We don't. It doesn't work like that.
I'm gonna post it on Twitter.
You have regional. So when you fly,
I'm gonna post this on Twitter.
when I fly,
Careful.
When I fly from Warner Robins, Georgia to Augusta, Georgia, and the heading 000, when I do that, when I fly, I have a regional map of that airspace.
Well, we're talking about New York
Okay, New York
to Germany.
to New York to Germany, you do account for the curvature.
That autopilot
Accounts for curvature. 100% accounts for curvature.